ॐ सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्म विद्वरम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। So we are seeing the 5th chapter, and that is called Karma Sannyas Yoga. Yesterday we saw that the Lord was asked a question by Arjun about which of them is better, Karma Yoga or Karma Sannyas. And Bhagavan did not say specifically, he said that both are good, both lead to Shreyas. But for you, Arjun, specifically it is better to do Karma Yoga. And then we also saw about two types of sannyas. One is the secondary type of sannyas where one lives without raga and dvesha, equanimous in pairs of opposites, performing the duties, living in the world. If a karma yogi does the same, then that karma yogi and the sannyasi are equal. The higher form of sannyas is where there is no doership absolutely. Even in the basic actions of the body like seeing, hearing, tasting, etc., there is no sense of doership at all. So now we saw the analogy of the lotus leaf. That whoever does their actions dedicating it to the Supreme, Brahmani Adhaya Karmani, Sangam Tyaktva, giving up the attachment to fruits, such a person, lipyatena sa papena, that person is not disturbed by any agitations, like the leaf of the lotus. Now we go on to the description which is given of the Karma Yogi. Sannyasi description we saw. Karma Yoga has already been described in 3rd chapter. But again here also, a little more elaboration because the question deals with both Karma Sannyas and Karma Yoga. So in the 11th verse the Lord says, Kayena Manasa Buddhya, by the body, Kaya, Manasa, mind, Buddhya with the thinking, Kevalair Indriyairapi, and by the senses. Yogina Karma Kurvanti, the Karma Yogis, they do actions. Sangam Tyaktva Atma Shuddhaye, they also drop attachment to results. And why do they do action? See, the purpose for action. There are different motives behind action when a person acts in the world. Somebody acts for pleasure. Somebody acts for power. Somebody acts for prosperity. Somebody acts for popularity. Somebody acts for prestige. So pleasure, power, popularity, prestige, different reasons are there. But can these be the main purpose of action? In our culture, we always say that the purpose of action is only purity of mind. Purity of mind is the purpose of action. If my action has made me more selfless, if my action has made me more sensitive, if my action has made me more accommodative, if my action has ensured that my need for self-importance has reduced, my dependence on the results has reduced, that means I am increasing in my purity. So that's why it says, Yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaye. This is one expression that keeps coming again and again in the different scriptures. In Vivek Chudamani also, Shankaracharya said, Chittasya shuddhaye karma. For the shuddhi of the chitta, for the purity of the mind, is the action. And imagine not knowing that purpose. When I act out of selfishness, I want more power, more prosperity, more people, more popularity, more prestige. Exactly opposite happens. Instead of mind becoming purer through actions, mind becomes more impure. And that is the reason why we feel that action leads to bondage. And that's why we feel that, if I drop action, I will be peaceful. Because we equate agitation to action. But agitation is not equal to action. Or rather, action is not equal to agitation. Selfish action is equal to agitation. Otherwise, action is equal to purity of mind. Because nobody can stay in the world without action. It only depends on how I perform the action, with what motive, for what cause. So, Atma Shuddhaye. And every action can be done that way. Even the smallest of actions. Eating food can be done for the purity of the mind. How? Not to give in to the impulsiveness of the tongue, but to eat it for the sake of doing sadhana, what is good for the body. When I eat that way, I am getting over my attachment to the taste, attachment to the likes and dislikes. When I pray before eating the food, feel gratitude. It is such a common thing in our culture. Maybe we don't practice that nowadays, everyone. But simple statement now is, a lot of people will tell you that praying before food, invoking gratitude before food, helps us to digest that food better also. The state of mind is also much more peaceful. The entire metabolism is influenced by just that 2 moments of prayer. And it's there in every culture, to pray before eating food. So even smallest of activity can become a means to purify the mind. Whether it is my professional work, whether it is my family life, whatever action it is. If my attitude is, I am here to do action to purify the mind, I am not here to prove anything to anybody, I am not here to prove anything about myself and my glory and my greatness. If these two we can put aside, that is what it says, Sangam Tyaktva. Put aside these. Because this also distracts us. When we want to prove anything about ourselves, we want to prove something to somebody and we want their approval, many times we swerve from dharma, what is right. Then that action leads to agitation. You just think about it. Action, is it not that all animals, plants and birds also indulge in action? But is action causing agitation to them? Action doesn't cause agitation. It is false equation in our head that causes agitation. The motive of that action is not pleasure, prestige, popularity, people, all that. Motive of action should be purity of the mind. Hence he says that Karma Yogi is one who uses action to prepare the mind for purity. Karma Yogi is not one who escapes from action, nor Karma Yogi is one who indulges in selfish action and allows the action to bind. So same action, if I am not doing it appropriately, will bind, but if I do it with the right attitude, will liberate. Going ahead, he says, Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shanti mapnoti naishtiki. A yogi drops attachment to karma phala. If you see, in the first 6 chapters, this teaching comes again and again and again. That drop attachment to the result. Drop attachment to the result. This is one of the best stress management tips. Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shanti mapnoti naishtikim. What type of a shanti? Naishtikim shanti. Meaning final peace or absolute peace. Not just some relative peace, temporary. Because dropping the attachment to result does not mean only dropping attachment to external result. Please understand that. That is in the beginning we say. Now we have already come to 5th chapter. We need to go a little deeper into it. In meditation also, if I have an attachment to result, that my meditation should go very well, I must have darshan of the Lord. If there is an attachment to the result, to the degree I have an attachment to the result in sadhana also, to that degree my mind will be disturbed. So to put effort without getting attached to the result applies in all spheres. In work, in relationships, in my own personal life, in my spiritual life, in every aspect. There's no attachment to result. Focus more on the duty, focus more on the attitude. These two things if we focus on, we will attain peace. Because we don't have any control on the result in any case. Do we have control? We don't have at all. The faster we realize this, the better it is. One of the deepest attachments of a human being is the need to control. And that causes us pain. I want to control. There are some people also who are called control freak. Meaning they want everything in their control. And little bit things go out of control, they go haywire. That's the attachment to control. Contradiction in that is that person wants to control everything, but one's own body, mind, intellect is out of control. Just think. My body, mind, intellect is out of control and I want to control everybody else, thinking that their body, mind, intellect must be in control. Why are they not doing like this? This is a contradiction. That's the extrovertedness of human mind. All of us have it in some degree or the other, the need to control. How to get out of the need to control? Only through acceptance. If you find detachment as a heavy duty word, don't worry. Use the word acceptance. It is the same thing. 100% acceptance is equal to 100% detachment. There is no difference. But the moment we say detachment, one block comes into the mind. No, we are grahasthis. No, I can't be detached. Okay, can you accept life? Yes, acceptance of life. Acceptance, life has to be accepted. Very good. So use acceptance. What else? Having put the best effort, I need to learn to accept. Sometimes when I put my efforts, it may not be up to the best which I am capable of, but the factors may be such that I may not be able to do more than that. I have to accept that. As long as in the intention there is no complacency and compromise, that is enough. Because the same individual who is able to give a certain performance at a certain time may not be able to repeat that performance. Because the factors have changed, internal factors, external factors, a lot of things have changed. Hence he says here, Sangam Tyaktva. Karma Phalam Tyaktva. Shanti Mapnoti Naishtikim. Even the final beatitude comes when I learn to accept. The last stage of meditation is I have to let go of even the desire to realize. The desire to attain the knowledge of the truth or the self-knowledge, I have to let go. Why? Because the seeker is a sought already. I cannot become infinite. I am already infinite by nature. I am only attached to this body, mind, intellect and thinking myself to be the finite. Hence, in the last stage of meditation, one has to drop even the desire to become free and wait. When it has to happen, it will happen. Gurudev always used to say that from concentration you can come to contemplation. From contemplation you go into witness. And after that you have to drop. The last stage of meditation is a windfall of grace, he would say. And when that grace will flow, you have to only wait for it. You cannot make that happen. By our effort, we can go up to the level of witness and then leave it. It has to happen, it will happen. And it will happen, there is no doubt in that. Our problem is, we want it to happen in a certain time. That's the difficulty. So that's why he says, Shanti Mapnoti Naishtikim, even the absolute peace. So a Karma Yogi not only starts dropping the attachment to the results and attachment to action externally, but internally also. And that's why in the Gita 12th chapter there is a very, very nice line which we can understand only in this context, where it says that Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat. It is, rather than mechanical practice, better it is to know and then practice. Jnana dhyanam vishishyate. Better than knowledge is meditation. So better than practice is knowledge, better than knowledge is meditation. Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat jnana dhyanam vishishyate. Dhyanat karma phala tyaga. Greater than dhyan is karma phala tyaga. You just think about it. Why Bhagavan said that? Generally we think that dhyan is the highest and karma phala tyaga is the basic step. But he says no, dhyanat karma phala tyaga. And then he says tyagat shantihi anantaram. That karma phala tyaga there is the karma phala of meditation. That in the dhyan I want the result that Bhagavan should manifest or knowledge should arise, whatever that I should become free. That attachment one should drop. One experiences peace. That is the highest form of karma phala tyaga, which can happen only if I have practiced in my household life. That's why he says here that even a karma yogi will attain that supreme sheerly through the capacity to drop attachment to result. So he says yukta karma phalam tyaktva shanti mapnoti naishtikim. And then he gives the picture of somebody who is not integrated. So he says ayuktaha kamakarena. Person who has not integrated himself, is not living the life of karma yoga, kamakarena, is acting because of prompting of desire, selfish desire. Ayukta kamakarena phale sakto nibadhyate, is attached to the action, is attached to the specific result and gets bound. So a yogi, karma yogi, not attached to the result of action, attains supreme peace, and someone who is not practicing that karma yoga, being attached to the result, gets bound. Kama karena. So a selfish person travels in the car called Kam car. Karma yogi travels in the car called Omkar. Dedicate the actions to him, drop the attachment to results. So if anybody is a car manufacturer here, next model you can name Omkar or Kamkar, whatever. So anyway, the point is, this is the beauty of Karma Yoga. That's why Bhagavan said that Karma Yogi also will reach the same. So Arjun, don't think that Karma Sannyas is greater and Karma Yoga is lesser, and don't worry about all that. You stay where you are and keep doing what you have to do according to your adhikara, and you will reach the highest. So now he gives an example of a sannyasi with an analogy. Yesterday we spoke about the highest level of sannyasi. That sannyasi is described here again now with an analogy. Sir, 13th verse. Sarva karmani manasa sannyasyaaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan. So this highest form of sannyasi is the one who mentally has renounced all sense of agency or doership. Sarva karmani, manasa sannyasya. Mentally has no sense of agency. Yesterday we spoke about it. That doership is not there. Actions flow through that person. Sannyasya aste sukham vashi. That person lives in happiness, being a master, vashi, of one's own body, mind, intellect. It's very interesting. If you reverse the word vashi, what will you get? Shiva. Shiva. So if you want to become Shiva, you have to become vashi. Master the body, mind and intellect, and you realize Shiva here and now in our own heart. It's just that we have not integrated body, mind, intellect, so we think that happiness is outside. It's here and now in our heart. Analogy given here is Navadvare Pure Dehi. Just like there is a city with 9 gates. This is the example from the Upanishads, Kathopanishad. Navadvare Pure Dehi. Just like there is a city of 9 gates, and that city of 9 gates, there is a king. The very presence of the king ensures that law and order is there, and ministers are functioning, and Praja is following the laws, and everything happens. The king does not have to do anything. The presence of the king makes everybody active, and if the king is loving, inspiring, then the king has to rule not by his authority, but the king rules by his presence and by his love. In the same way, this body of ours is the city which has 9 gates. Now, which are these 9 gates? 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth, 7 gates. And anus and genitals, 9. These 9 gates are there. And lot of activity is happening inside the body. Who is the king? The king is the Atma, the self. In the mere presence of the Atma, the entire body functions. Atma doesn't do anything. Sannyasi is one who lives as the Atman, not as the body. That I am that Atman who is non-doer, akarta, abhokta. In its presence, everything happens in the body. Navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan na karayan. Not only I don't do anything, I don't make anybody do anything also. Kurvan means to do, karayan means to make somebody do. So it is possible sometimes we become quiet, we don't do anything, but we tell somebody, come on, do this. So we make them do. Self is neither it does anything nor it makes anyone else do. Meaning, it does not tell the mind to think, it does not tell the buddhi that this is right, that is wrong. Many people confuse consciousness with conscience. There is a difference. Now, my conscience pricks. My conscience does not allow me to do, or my conscience tells me you should do this. So is that not the truth in my heart? Self doesn't do anything. That is consciousness. Then what is conscience? That very self, when it is reflecting through the buddhi which is pure, a sattvic buddhi, peaceful, harmonious, knowledgeable, balanced, that pure buddhi is called as conscience. So to know what is right and wrong, to tell us this is right, you should do this, you should not do this, is all the job of the buddhi which is pure, and that is the voice of conscience in each one of us. Consciousness only illumines that voice. Consciousness does not tell us to do anything. That's why the word is very clear, karayan, naiva karayan. It does not cause us to do anything. It does not make us feel anything. It does not make us think or make us act. That is all because of our past vasana, which leads to desire, desire leads to thought, thought leads to action. That's how we are acting. But the self does not do anything, does not prompt any activity in us. Because if self starts prompting, consciousness starts prompting, it becomes finite. It becomes changing. That sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't do. Then it is perishable. So a sannyasi lives identified with that consciousness, which is non-doer, non-enjoyer, of the nature of Sat, Chit and Anand, and revels in that bliss. The body, mind, intellect will function in the presence. It is just like yesterday we spoke about that example, that we are sitting and watching the movie is going on. We don't have to do anything for it. Example, of course, has a limitation there. So that is the form of sannyas, where a person lives identified only with the self. So if I want to do karma sannyas totally and listen to the truth, reflect on it, contemplate on it, the ultimate goal which one reaches is this, that one realizes the consciousness, that I am that consciousness, I am not this body, mind, intellect, and completely detached. And that consciousness is the same in everyone. That's the realization of that master. So this is the form of sannyas, and whoever lives like this, no actions bind them. Neither good actions bind them, nor bad actions bind them, nothing happens to them. They remain unaffected. So if I say that there is no right and wrong, and I want to live a life beyond right and wrong, the only way to do is identify with consciousness. I am consciousness. Where there is no action, there is no question of right and wrong. Now, having said all this, how does that person live in the world? The sannyasi who is identified with the highest truth lives in the world always absorbed in that state. So there is a very sweet verse here, verse number 17, which says, Tad buddhayaha. Their intellect is absorbed in that self. Tadatmanaha. Their mind always is filled with that feeling for the self. Tannishtha, they abide in that self. Tat parayanaha. And that is the goal which they have always tried to reach. So their mind is engaged only in that. Gacchandi apunaravrittin. They reach that state from where they will never fall back. Meaning, having established themselves in that state of highest knowledge, infinite consciousness, they never fall back into the realm of delusion. Jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha. All their sins or agitations are destroyed by knowledge. So how do they live? Live absorbed in the self. And how do they meet people? See, that description was their internal description. Externally, you may see a sannyasi or a realized master dealing with people. But what will be their vision? 18th verse tells us that. Let us chant the 18th one. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. Now this is the relationship with the different types of people in the world that a master has. Ordinarily, how do we relate to people? Based on different types of criteria. We distinguish them based on the status, based on their achievement, based on the profession, based on relationship. This is my own brother, this is my cousin brother, like that. So there are different ways in which we group, categorize people and then appropriately relate with each person. For this person who is seeing the self alone, what is his relationship, you see? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane, meaning a person who is a Brahmana, very learned, scholar, wise person who has knowledge and humility. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane. One type of people. Gavi means the cow, meaning all the animals. Hastini, the elephant. Shuni, the dog. Shvapaka, meaning the worst form of a human being who eats even the dog. Meaning dog who is so faithful, this is a person who will kill the dog and eat the dog also. That level of tamasic or a not evolved person who just eats the dog. Pandita Samadarshinaha. Pandit here does not mean the pujari. Pandit here means the person who has self-knowledge, who was described earlier. That's sannyasi. Samadarshina. They treat all of them equally inside. Please remember the word used is samadarshinaha, not samavartinaha. There's a difference. Samadarshi meaning their vision is the same. They don't psychologically discriminate. They don't say that this person is a low person and that person is a very high person and then I am going to choose to relate with any one of them. No. They may relate with all of them appropriately. So it is said with a child they become childlike, with a wise person they become very wise and they can talk. With the youth they are able to use the language of the youth. So with different types of people they are able to come to their level and adapt and talk and relate. They have no internal psychological distinction. That he is better, that she is not good, and that person and that cow and this animal, and none of the psychological distinctions are there. So for them there is no inhibition. They love unconditionally. Whoever comes in their presence, they feel that unconditional love. Yesterday I gave you the example of that person who was so lonely, who was rejected by the society also. Very, very sad that person was, but Gurudev accepted that person. For a saint, the vision is the same. This is acceptance of people as they are and relating to them appropriately at the functional level with no psychological preference. One doesn't think that a servant is lesser and somebody else is greater. Appropriate transaction one may do. One is not going to treat both of them externally in the same way. But psychologically one will never think that this person is inferior and somebody else is superior. One can even say that at a humanitarian level, everyone deserves the same love, respect, care, everything. But here they go beyond humanitarian level also. Because cow and the dog and the elephant and all that is mentioned here. Because they see that the same self is manifesting in these different forms. Like a person who knows the mud, knows that this is a cup, this is a saucer, this is a pitcher, this is a spoon, this is a plate, all made up of mud. Now the person who has the vision of that mud knows that all this is mud. But will that person ever use the spoon in place of the plate? No. Spoon is spoon, plate is plate. But because the vision is all this is mud, there is no psychological difference inside. Same thing with people. Pandita Samadarshinaha. They have the equal vision that all of us are the same self. And hence you will see that from the Guru's standpoint, even Shishya is not there. Guru sees the Shishya as Brahman only. Because all of us are the manifestation of the same truth. If there is somebody who thinks that I am realized and these are deluded fools, and that person is not realized. The realization of this person is that all of them are the same self. Maybe they don't know it, that is all. So there was Buddha who was once he was walking through a village. He's very calm, very serene, very peaceful. So as he was passing through the village, some people gathered around and they started walking with him. So they asked him, "Are you God?" He kept silent and he kept walking. After some time they asked him, "Are you some angel?" He didn't say anything, he kept going. And again after some time, some more people gathered. So this is, "Are you some prophet or a saint?" "Are you some magician?" But how is it that you are so peaceful and in your presence we feel so much of love and peace and happiness that we feel like coming with you? And he said, "I am awake." The only difference between you and me is I am awake. You are not awake to your divinity. Just wake up. That's the vision. A person who knows the truth sees everyone as only the self, and hence internally there is no distinction. If one starts practicing this at whichever level, we start seeing oneness. This is the highest level of oneness, where one sees oneness as the self, that there is only one self. But if we want harmony in relationships, we should focus on oneness, not on the differences. All these are my family members, one level of oneness. All these are my countrymen, another level of oneness. All these are human beings, one more level. All of them are living creatures, another level. Highest level is all of us are the same self. So Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shunichaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. Just like our different parts of the body, they all are different from each other, but we don't psychologically distinguish. Gurudev used to joke in his talks, that if there is a pin that is given to you and you are asked, in which part of the body should this pin be poked, what will you say? Will you say that, these are feet, chalo yahan pe khoos. This is my feet. So what will you say? At the max, if you have to poke the neighbor. Don't poke me. Why? Because that is not me. But this whole thing is me. So the sense of oneness pervades. Even though all the parts are doing different things, and one may say that the brain is more subtler than the feet, but one doesn't do that psychological distinction. Then why do we do that distinction? And just think how much of discrimination in the world in the name of different things, and how much of violence, how many people got killed, how many plants, birds, animals are getting destroyed, all because human being doesn't see oneness. Human being sees difference. And the moment we see difference, we want to prove our supremacy. In oneness, everybody is equal. I don't have any glory. But in difference, I want to prove my glory. That's why the state of egolessness, not everybody is ready for. Because in that we lose our distinction. Our speciality is gone. But the beauty is when that speciality is gone, then only experience of infinity happens. Till I hold on to that speciality, I live insecure, miserable, wanting to prove more and more supremacy. So having said this, the Lord says, what is it that does not allow us to live in the spirit of Karma Yoga or in the spirit of Sannyas? We go straight to verse number 22. Ye hi samsparshaja bhogaha dukkayonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nate shuramate buddhaha. So he says that our attachment to sense pleasures is that which causes us this problem. Ye hi samsparshaja bhogaha. Samsparsha meaning when we contact, then the enjoyment arises. They are called such enjoyments. All the sense enjoyments are like that. The moment the eyes see something nice, then that desire arises and then that joy arises. The moment the tongue tastes something, till it is here, one doesn't enjoy that much. The moment it is put on the tongue, Cadbury's chocolate. It is solid till here, the moment it is put on the tongue, it becomes liquid. Melts. And then you see that advertisement and then you want exactly like that experience only when you put, and it doesn't melt so fast. When we were small children, that rasna used to come, no? Rasna. So you used to drink one by one spoon only and then go and see in the mirror. It has become orange. So one wants like that. So the samsparshaja bhoga. These are sense enjoyments born out of contact with the senses. Now what does Bhagavan say here? Yehi samsparshaja bhogaha. Whatever sense enjoyment is there in the world born out of contact with the senses, dukkha yonaya evate. They all are the womb of sorrow only. What a pessimistic view is this, my God. Cadbury's, you don't know the joy, Swamiji. It is not dukkha yoni, it is sukha yoni. Should eat new things, nice things. You eat and see, and to see a movie on that big. Nowadays people have that projector and home theater system, and you don't have to go to theater. You see this. The other day I went to somebody's house. They showed me all that because they had some new house or something, and they said, Swamiji, this is this jacuzzi is there. And this I saw in Dubai and I have ordered from there, it has come. And the Jhumar has come from Spain. And the marble has come from Italy. And the jacuzzi is so modern, and this from all sides water will come and then you can control the temperature and something he was saying. I thought I had already switched off because I said Dukha yonaya evate. I am anyway never going to sit in a jacuzzi, and why do I have to bother? So okay, I said very good, very nice, wonderful. There is nothing wrong in any of that. People can enjoy, no doubt, but we have to know clearly that Sukha yoni, it is not Sukha yoni, it is pleasure, no doubt in that. It is temporary pleasure. So that's why Bhagavan says, Adyantavantak kaunteya, they begin and they end. You see, when we say Dukkha yoni, the womb of Dukkha is what? That it ends, no? That it is finite is the cause of our sorrow or not? That is because we are confused. We are deluded. That is the only reason. Actually, it will be a sorrow if it continuously remains. Think about it. Thank God that it ends. Otherwise, can you enjoy next pleasure? Suppose the pleasure of jacuzzi continues. You can't enjoy mango after that because jacuzzi, that pleasure is going on in the head. Now what to do? This is not ending now. I want it to end, but this is not ending. Imagine how many pleasures can we enjoy. Whichever pleasure first you enjoy, that only continues throughout life. Misery or not. That it ends is the glory, actually. That it ends, it comes, it ends. So then new things keep happening. But if I think that happiness is going to be an accumulation or not accumulation, cumulative effect of all this put together, then I am confused. So he says, Adyantavantak kaunteya, those who have seen this very clearly, that they begin and they end. How much is there in that? For how long that house will be like that, you tell me? First 1 year you will show to everybody. After that you will only get bored, saying, "Arey bahut ho gaya. Jisko dekhna hai jaake dekh." One will get bored or not? So the wise person says, "Nateshu ramate buddha." Wise person may enjoy all that also. If it is there, good. If it is not there, doesn't matter. Nateshu ramate. The intellect is not reveling in that. Ram means to revel. I see a lot of these English words, they borrow from Sanskrit only. That's why that English RUM also comes from this only. When you drink, you revel. I am not joking. Many English words are like that, which have the roots from Sanskrit. So, nateshu ramate, meaning the intellect is not craving for it. It is free, it is available. Why are we not able to do the tyag? Because our intellect is stuck to the pleasure that is born out of sense contact. And all our work is to get that sense object by which I will contact and then I will get sense pleasure. Mind should not revel in that. As long as one is a child, one enjoys playing with the toys. After some time, one outgrows all that. In the same way, one has to outgrow that there are these pleasures in the world, no doubt. And new forms of pleasure will keep coming. That person showed me and he introduced me to some new type of bath. He said, Swamiji, in the morning I take 40 minutes bath and that bath is called dew bath. I said, okay, dew bath. Os, dew drops they fall. I have no idea also. There is something called dew bath. We normally take bath, get out and start doing puja. Who knows that which other types of baths are there? So he said there is a dew bath, it is so nice and there is an ocean view and so very good. Mind should not revel in that. At that moment you may even enjoy it, but there is no craving before it and after it. If I want to know the mastery over my senses, then this is a state. Before it there is no craving, after it there is no wanting to repeat. Only such a person can enjoy it in that moment also fully. So there is nobody who enjoys the world more than a sannyasi actually. You think? Because for an ordinary person, there is a deep craving first of all. So even while I am eating this Cadbury, my mind is already on something else. Few seconds in the beginning I have tasted, after that it is gone, already gone. Somewhere else it is planning something, scheming something, desiring something. And even if it remains, then I am scared it is going to end, it is going to end, it is going to end. So I am not with it. And when it ends, then what happens? Once more. Some people do that. If somebody sings very nicely, then say once more. Thank God they don't say that to lecture. It's good also. Because we can't reproduce the same lecture again. But what comes, comes. We don't sit and prepare our speech कि हम यही बोलने वाले हैं. And nobody will say to that lecture 100%, because one lecture to sustain itself is a big thing. Who will say once more Swamiji? Nobody will say. So they apply that rule Adyanta Vanta Kauntaya very nicely for a lecture or for a satsang. It begins and it ends. In fact, people decide to come only based on the time duration. If it is 7:15 to 8:15, then I will come. 8:15 it will end, no? Yeah. If it goes on to 8:30, 8:45, no, 1.5 hours is too much. I can't handle, so I am not going to go. But for sense enjoyment, we don't decide like that. We want it to continue. So the shloka here says, Na teshu ramate buddha. The wise person does not revel in that. If it comes, it comes. It doesn't come, it doesn't come. The mind of that person, what we saw is earlier, tad buddhaya, tadatmana, tannishtha, tatparayana, is single pointedly seeking that self. So this is one aspect. Our attachment to the senses and dependency on it, wanting to have more and more of it, that doesn't give us that freedom to drop. Then, this is external. Now we come to internal factor. 23rd one. Shaknoti haivaya sodhum praksharira vimokshanat kama krodhodbhavam vegam Sayukta sukhi naraha. So he says, whoever is able to withhold, shaknoti ihaiva, while living here, whoever can control, whoever can bear, Prakshirira vimokshanat, before you drop the body, if you get this capacity of what? Kama krodha udbhavam vegam, control the impulsiveness of desire and anger. That person is integrated, he is a yogi and he is a sukhi, he is very happy. These two are very, very powerful impulses. Impulse of desire and impulsiveness of anger. Bhagavan did not say that eliminate anger and desire. But he said you should be able to bear the impulse of anger and desire and not fall for that. Because in that impulsiveness we will end up doing so many things. Impulsiveness of desire makes us so restless. Till the desire is not fulfilled, one is very restless. One can't focus on the duty, one cannot be happy, one is not peaceful with the relationships. That desire goes on and on and on and on in the head. See, desire is the direct enemy of knowledge. A person who wants knowledge, because knowledge requires steadiness of the buddhi, and desire is the cause of unsteadiness. So the more dependency on desire, the more disturbed the mind, the less capacity to be steady and gain knowledge. It doesn't even have to be many, many desires. One desire is powerful, that can disturb. One desire. So then that impulsiveness of desire doesn't allow that person. Suppose there is a desire to watch. Today is what, Thursday? Thursday, no? Tomorrow is the match, India-Pakistan match. Suppose a person has an exam, or suppose somebody has to do something important, or take somebody to, let us say, the market or the temple or whatever, and then match is going on. God, how much of no one is sitting here, the mind is there only. Chalo, main dekh ke aa jata. 2 pages one reads, closes, and then goes, sees the score. And then one would have promised saying, I just see the score and come. But then one is saying, no, just 1 over. This 1 over has to get over, then I'll go. In that 1 over, suppose some dramatic change has happened. Then one sees the clock. Clock is on 4:25. Chalo, round figure. Till 4:30 I will see. Something one does. Because the desire doesn't allow the person to be quiet. It applies to so many things. And subtler the desire, the more powerful is the impulse of that. Just imagine in the impulse of name, fame, popularity, what all one lands up doing. In Subhashita literature, there is a nice Subhashit which says, the craving for fame. It says, Ghatam Bindyat, Patam Chindyat. Break a pot, tear some clothes, Kuryad Rasa Barohanam. Dance in some awkward, funny ways. Yena kena prakarena prasiddha purusho bhavet. In any way possible, this man wants to become famous. A few years, like last year or year before that, there was one style which came, dancing style, Gangam style. You know how it started? It started because in one particular place, I forgot the name of that place, people were very, very depressed. So this man decided that I want to make people laugh. So he started doing funny movements in some way. And looking at that, a lot of people there who were there on the road, they were just walking but miserable. They were going through depression or whatever, that whole city or that area. So he decided to do. So he did. So people were very happy. They started smiling and laughing. So his purpose was served. But he didn't realize that somebody is shooting this and they put it on the internet. And it became viral and everywhere now, Gangam style, this, that, some video, some dance. There is nothing in that. There is no technique, nothing. And this person didn't even do it with that attitude that I want to become famous. But to become famous, actually people do what all things they do. Suddenly all the hair will become like this. You wonder क्या हो गया इसको. But that's a style, spike. Okay, it's a style. Some new thing, one has to do. When we were young, suddenly this jean used to be torn here, or sometimes there used to be some strips, torn strips. In the beginning, we thought, "Phate hue kapde kyun pehna hai aise?" But then that's a style. We didn't know that. So ye na ke na pata. So the subtler the desire is, the more the impulsiveness is there. So the Lord says here that these two, one is impulse of desire, other is impulse of anger. When anger comes, we just want an outlet. Anything we say in that. And the impulsiveness is such that till a certain point one would not have exploded, but suddenly one will explode. One who does not have a control on that. Just now I was coming, one person was like that. I had written him an email. That person replied to that email. 5 lines in that email. 4 lines are very polite and courteous. 5th line is absolutely nasty. Gone. That shows that impulse, that the person did not have the control. That one line, if it was not there, everything was proper. But that impulse came, no control over that. And sometimes when such situations happen, impulsiveness of somebody makes us lose our balance, which is the lack of sadhana in us actually. It's not that person's fault. Emotional victim will say, that person made me feel like this. Emotionally responsible person will say, I am feeling like this because of my nature. Because I don't have control over my impulse. So there are 2 expressions. One is, you made me feel angry. That is an emotional victim who will blame. Other is, I am feeling angry right now. In that, the emotional state is my responsibility. My emotional state is my responsibility. How much ever people outside may do whatever. If I don't have the control on that impulse, that means my weakness. I cannot blame anybody out there. Eknath Maharaj, 108 times that man spit on him, and every time that person did that, he went down and took bath, came out, took bath, came out. But he didn't get angry. Just imagine, one person has to just tell us something and how disturbed we get. And here is somebody who is actually spitting on him. And for no fault of his also. He doesn't even know why this man is doing this. Why do we get so angry? No, I didn't do anything, and why this person is thinking like this about me? He's falsely doing allegations. So that is his immaturity or her immaturity. Why should I get bothered? But we don't have that control over our impulse. So then we get bothered. So he says, whoever is able to control this, sayuktaha, that person has integrated the personality, mastered himself. Sa sukhi naraha, that person will be happy. So this is the 5th chapter, and the Lord concludes this 5th chapter by saying that all this becomes easy. Control over impulse, mastery over the senses, also all the types of detachment to fruits, detachment to results of meditation, all that becomes easy when he says bhoktaram yajna tapasam. When a person knows that I, the Supreme Lord, I am the one who is actually consuming all the offerings that you give in a yajna. So meaning all our actions, whatever we are doing is a yajna. It all goes to the Lord. Yajna tapasam. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He is the Lord of the whole universe. And where is He? Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. He is the well-wisher of all beings, residing in the hearts of all beings. Jnatva Mam Shantim Richati. Knowing me to be the friend of all beings, that person attains peace. As long as we keep struggling alone with our limited capacities, it will become very difficult to drop, to detach from fruits of action, to detach from action, detach from doership, detach from sense object, detach from the impulse of desire and anger. Very difficult to do all this. The only way to do it is get attached to the Lord. Know that the Lord is with me, the Lord is my friend. Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. There is a difference between Suhrid and Mitra. Mitra is a friend who will be your friend when you have done something good. will return your goodness and be your friend. Suhrid means somebody who has not, towards whom you have done nothing, and yet that person is your well-wisher and is your friend. So the Lord says that a person who knows this, that I am the well-wisher of all beings. They may not even have turned to me till now. It doesn't mean that I am not their well-wisher. I am their well-wisher at all times. Whoever holds on to this will find all this very easy. So that's why Gurudev always used to say, attach to the higher and detach from the lower. So this is where we end the 5th chapter, and next month we will take up the 6th chapter, and that 6th chapter is Dhyan Yoga.